Welcome back everyone. Today it's filament calibration with the ShoeFlex from Steam3D. I have been asked many times how do I calibrate my filaments, especially on the VisiBot, so don't take that video as a tutorial, it's more like a response to that question. Steam3D sent me free of charge spools of ShoeFlex mint green. 9075A because it's a 90A filament. That will be 75A after being extruded, so it will be very flexible. They got a MVS at 3mm cube second up to 3.6 with a 0.4mm nozzle. Can't wait to see what it will be on the VisiBot, so thank you Steam3D for sending me such a cool filament. They also give you in the box a plastic bag to keep your filament nice and dry. Before calibrating your filament, make sure your X, Y, Z and E rotation distance are properly calibrated. Otherwise, your printhead will move above or below your movement in X, Y and Z and leads to inaccurate print results. And for the extruder, it could push too much or not enough filament. My X, Y, Z and E are properly calibrated. Now it's time to calibrate the filament. And here are all the steps I'm going to follow. Maximum volumetric speed, pressure advance, retraction, flow rate, tolerance, cooling, and the Benchy. At the end, it will be 100 grams of used filament, and I know it's a lot, but once done, it's done. I will never have to recalibrate everything, even if I buy another roll of that same filament. And don't be surprised if no matter what you do, you don't get your filament perfectly calibrated. And I'm thinking of stringy PETG or even TPU. Okay, first thing first, I'm gonna create a new filament in my spool manager, which is Spoolman. Once done, my filament has a new ID number and it is 17. I'm gonna keep that for a moment. Then I make a profile in Orca. To spend less time on that, I made a template. So that way I only have few things to change instead of doing everything from scratch. And finally, I need to add a macro for this new filament. The name of this macro has been added in the filament profile, so when I will print with the ShoeFlex, the macro will be automatically sent to the printer to enable the pressure advance, retraction settings, and the spool ID to track the amount of filament used. Okay, now everything is set, the filament has been loaded, I have my laptop next to the VisiBot, so let's go for the first test. Okay, here for the first test, instead of using the MVS test from Orca, I'm printing a simple shape in vase mode. And the thing is, once I found the right MVS, I can let it run to check if it will fail or not. The current print temperature is 210 degrees Celsius, and usually I set the initial speed at 100 mm per second, but because it's flexible, I set it at 50. Then I'm gonna increase the speed until it failed. Honestly, at that speed, it's a bit boring, so you can just fast forward. It's been running for 35 seconds at 4.6 mm cube second, and it's still nice and clean. What's funny is that it's already above the 3.6 mm cube second from the manufacturer, so let's crank it up. Usually when I do this test, here is what I look for. A matte finish if the filament is supposed to be glossy, under extrusion or bad layer adhesion, or even skipping steps of course with hot filament, because there is more grip. But today with flexible filament, I'm more expecting the PTFE tube to come out the main extruder because I don't have PTFE tube connector on it. And when it happens, it means that the secondary extruder is pushing more filament than the main one, simply because the filament is just slipping on the gears. 110 mm per second. Okay, now 115. Oh, I think... Oh yeah, it's failing at 115 mm per second with an MVS at 12.9 mm cube second. Okay, and now we should see the PTFE tube popping out with the filament, and here it is. Okay, I'm gonna stop that. Same temperature, but now I'm gonna set 110 millimeter per second because I know it failed just above that speed, and I'm gonna let it run for a full minute just to confirm that it won't fail. And after that, I'm gonna increase the temperature at 220 C. It's almost 1 minute. To me, it's good enough. Now 220 degree, and I can start directly at 100 millimeter per second. 12.4 millimeter cube per second. 13.5. 14.6. Oh, okay, it's failing at 15.7 millimeter cube second. And again, the PTFE tube that is popping out with the filament. Okay, let's go for 230 degree. 14.6. 15.7. 16.9. 18. 19.1. Okay, it's failing right here. Last temperature 240 degree. 15.5, 20.2, 21.4, 22.5. Okay, and it fails at 23.6. That's impressive. Look how flexible this thing is. Okay, now I'm gonna let it run for a minute at 21.4 millimeter cube per second. Oh, okay, it's getting deformed, and I'm gonna stop that here because I will never print a layer that long, so it's good enough. Okay, the issue here is that it's deforming at a certain height, plus the softness of the material, so I'm not really surprised. This happens with PLA when there is not enough cooling during this test. Okay, what about the layers addition? And, whoa, okay. That's really good. No way I can tear this band off. Now I have all my MVS values. I'm gonna keep the highest one, which is 21.4, and save the profile. Now I can do the pressure advance test, but first I need to activate the tuning tower command. It's been printing for 30 seconds now, PA value still going up, and the print is supposed to get better and better as it increases. Okay, mid-print and no differences. Almost done, and still as ugly as it was at the beginning. It's definitely not supposed to look like this. I'm thinking of two things: too much pressure and not enough cooling. Yeah. Okay, this is the first one. On the second one, I set the MVS at 19.1, more cooling on the RCS and the CPAP. And on the third one, I thought it would be better by pointing the sim line to the RCS. And I was thinking, what about if I start on a high PA value? And yeah, way better. Not perfect, but better. Next step, the retraction. I need to activate the tuning tower for it, like I did for the pressure advance. Because I don't use any retraction settings on flexible filaments, I'm doing the test on a PLA as an example. As you can see, I don't use the typical retraction tower because it only does the test over a short distance. So I prefer to do it over long distance because the nozzle has more time to ooze. This is the tower 1, tower 2, and tower 3. Nose trigging at 6.22mm, but I'm gonna say 7 to get more room, just in case. And because I like round numbers. Now I have to multiply the factor, which is 0.020, by the measurement, 7mm, and the result will be my new retraction setting. When I print this test, I stare near the printer and keep an eye on what's happening to see if there is like gaps or under extrusion on the first layer, ripples on the second layer, also on the infill, if it's under extruded, if it's ripped by crossing the previous layer. Then there is the internal bridge. Is it sagging? And for the top layer, of course, it should be smooth. But is there any gaps? Yeah, there are a lot of things to watch during this test. We can already see which one is the worst on the first layer. And to me, the 0 is not so bad. Second layer, again, the 0 is not bad. -5, there are gaps on it, and -10, it's worse. Third layer, nothing to say, it's only the infill in the first direction. Okay, fourth layer, and as you can see, -20 is getting ripped when it's crossing the previous layer. Okay, good infill on the -5 and 0. Bridging on -10, pretty good. Okay, almost done. All those gaps. This is the perfect example of what we don't want. -5, we saw small gaps on the second layer, and here with the light, they are gaps on the top layer as well. The good one, very small gaps on the edge, but it's not too bad. The almost perfect one, but still tiny gaps on the very top edge. I like to print this test just to check if it's precise or not with the current filament, and sometimes it helps me to confirm that I set the right value for the flow rate. If the peg doesn't fit inside the first hole, I lower the temperature or the flow rate just a little bit, and if it's still not fitting, I play with the XY hole compensation. Not the best first layer for sure. Everything is at 500mm per second, 40K. 65K on the solid and sparse infill. And traveling speed, as always, 2000 mm per second, 65K. Infill pattern, I choose the align rectilinear at 10%. Except that bad first layer, the rest of the print seems great. Almost done. Okay. Nice. Okay, here is a closer look. Very clean on the outside. The bottom layer, I was expecting something better, but the walls are smooth. And still pretty flexible. That's cool. The peg was printed in the last hole, the largest one, and you know it's perfect when it's fitting just like this. It's perfect. You will probably find that a little bit silly, but I like to do my cooling test on the Benchy Boat chimney. It does represent the smallest thing that I will print on the VisiBot. I don't need to do more. But yeah, if I need to fine tune my cooling settings, I would print a simple cone. On this first test, the RSCS is set at 30% and the CPAP at 50 on the chimney. But right now, the CPAP is running at 30%. Generally, all my prints are sliced at 500 mm per second. I only play with the acceleration. Here is 5K on the inner wall, 10K on the outer wall. On the tolerance test, the walls were at 40K. Here it's 40K on the bridge, 65K on the infill, solid infill, and traveling. The traveling is at 2000 mm per second, 65K. It's still running at 30% on the CPAP. Okay, it's blowing more air. 33, 38. Here it is, 50% on the CPAP. It's exactly 54 mm per second on the chimney. This is what it looks like with my current cooling settings. Second test, still same cooling settings, but now I activated the feature called Slow Print Down for a better layer cooling, with the option minimum print speed set at 30 mm per second. Nothing really changed on this one. Third test, I changed the maximum fan speed threshold at 0.5 second instead of 0.3. Yeah, there is an improvement. Now I set 0.8 second instead of 0.5 on the maximum fan speed threshold with the RCS at 50%. Way better. Next time I will set 1 second on the maximum fan speed threshold and I think it will be perfect. I also tested with the cones and it's great for fine-tuning the cooling settings, but honestly, if I want to make crispy detailed prints, I will make them on my resin 3D printer. So honestly, the result I got on the chimney is good enough for what I will print. Same cooling settings as the chimney on this one, with the RCS at 100%. Same thing here, but at 210 degree instead of 240 degree. And on this one, it's 200 degree. On the previous cooling test, I was looking for tuning the maximum fan speed threshold for small part, but now with a Benchy, I will be able to find my minimum fan speed threshold value. But it also helps me to adapt my print profile to get the best quality out of the filament. Off camera, I did a lot of tests on the Benchy, and it appears that this filament doesn't really like overhang walls. And you will see that I can print really fast on flat full layer, but as soon as I have to print overhang walls, I can only print them at 70 mm per second. Don't get me wrong, 70 it's already fast enough for what filament it is, but compared to when I print a flat full layer at 253 mm per second, that's slow. No matter how much cooling I set, how I slow down on overhang curl lines, or even when I change the line width for a better deposition. And when I print that filament really fast, it swells or foams, and then it shrinks back to its normal diameter. So you can print overhang walls correctly when it swells and shrinks, because the previous printed line is kind of moving or not at the same position. So the only solution I had was to print at 70 mm per second. Yeah. Which is still above the recommended speed, so I'm not gonna complain. Okay, first layer 188 mm per second, 50K, it's flat, no issue. Now you see 70 mm per second on the walls for the second layer, infill at 252 mm per second. Such a big difference I'm not used to. Now we have the infill at 267 mm per second with the walls still around 70. Okay, because it will be very boring to watch, I will not put the whole video of the Benchy, so see you in a few seconds. Okay, job done. And it has been a 20-minute and 40-second Benchy Boat. And that's the result I have for a 20-minute 75A TPU Benchy. Not really bad. And not enough layers on the top, so it would be better if it was printed slower. Okay, that's it for the ShoeFlex, and it was so cool to print with it. No bed temperature, no smells, no bubbles, even under constant 48% humidity. That filament slides amazingly well inside the PTFE tube compared to glossy TPU. Can be printed way faster than regular 75A filaments instead of hovering. They have to be printed very slowly. And the last thing, it doesn't really need a lot of cooling, so that's a good thing for the noise. If you wanna buy the ShoeFlex or another filament from Sting3D, check out their website, sting3dtech.com. They have a lot of cool filaments like Airless basketball, Polish PLA, PVDF, AMS TPU, and so much more. Of course, you can also reach them on their social networks to ask questions or even place orders. They will be more than happy to help you. Again, thank you Sting3D for the filaments you sent me, and I'll see you next time.